If a contractor ever tells you, don't worry, we'll figure it out later, that should give you a little bit of pause. You don't want to go into a foundation figuring it out. Today I want to talk about what cutting corners really costs in construction, because it's almost never cheap when you have to do stuff over, or worse, tear something out and do it differently. I've seen projects go from thousands, sometimes tens of thousands over budget because of shortcuts that were made in the beginning, and they hurt. I'm going to break it down to a few areas where I see people cutting corners. Most people think that cutting corners means cheap materials, but the biggest problem isn't the materials typically. There's a few areas where I see people cutting corners the most. Most people think that cutting corners means getting cheap materials and cheap finishes. But the biggest problem in cutting corners usually comes from poor planning, permits, and communication. Skipping the plans, skipping the permits, and hiring labor with no experience. These are the kind of shortcuts that you may not see immediately, but they'll show up during the course of construction or months later when something's failing. Another thing is the hidden cost of cutting corners. Something you might not see initially. When something goes wrong, you're not just paying for the repairs, you're paying to redo a whole area that might look fantastic and you love everything about it. Now, because of this area you have to repair, you got to tear out what looks perfect to put it back perfectly, hopefully, and then repair the damage that was there. So you're paying for demolition, you're paying for delays, rework, inspections. Sometimes that could be legal stuff as well. Most of the time it costs far more doing it cheaply the first time than doing it right the first time. In construction, you don't always pay up front, but you can pay later, and I see it happen all the time. So one of the main reasons not to cut corners and why experienced contractors charge more is because you're not just paying for the labor, you're paying for the experience of what it takes to get that project done. And experienced contractors know this isn't just a set in stone type of experience. There are things that can come up, and if you haven't been through one of these projects before, you may not know you're going to need $1,200 set aside for cleaning up the area during the different trades coming in and out. You're going to have a load of concrete to pay for after we demo that and run our underground plumbing. So you're paying for the experience, the systems, the insurance, and the accountability. You're paying for fewer surprises, fewer problems, and ultimately that peace of mind that protects your investment. So how to avoid cutting corners and what to look out for so you don't hire somebody that's going to cut corners and make mistakes. Ask the questions. Get the clear plans. Understand the process of the project. And walk through it with your contractor at least once, if not multiple times, to understand the process. Don't be afraid to ask him to slow down and define what a joist is. Before you sign even, you can do all this. There's no reason not to. And find somebody that would rather educate you than rush you through the process. Because a well-informed contractor is going to be excited to tell you what the heck's going on here. And being a good homeowner means paying attention, asking questions, and being a good listener. If you're planning a project, remember, cheap shortcuts almost always lead to expensive problems. So choose experience, choose communication, choose long-term value. This is so important rather than choosing the cheapest bid. Experience, communication, long-term value. Talking about big money you're spending here. Don't save a couple pennies and walk over dollars.